Well, hello YouTube, it's me, Fortmaster, and unfortunately, this is not the start of this reaction. This is, unfortunately, part of a much larger reaction. So if you want to start from the very beginning of the video, links to it should be in the top corner of the video, as well as in the description of the video, linking to it, as well as any other parts of the reaction if there are any. And if you want to support me, but don't feel confident about becoming a YouTube or Patreon member, feel free to use the Super Thanks option underneath all of my videos. But yeah, well, all out of the way, let's actually get back to the reaction then.
Yeah, they go to 𝐸𝐞𝐫, where Poe is almost immediately found by this lady, Zorii, in her gold and maroon outfit. Zorii reveals that Poe used to be a spice runner, essentially a drug dealer, and he ended up screwing over his old crew when he left to join the Resistance. I know some people were mad about this because it broke some continuity established in expanded universe media about Poe's backstory, but as I said at the start, the movies take priority over anything else. Though it is pretty lame that even with all these various departments working together to keep this franchise consistent, they weren't communicating with each other.
Honestly, God, you know, it makes me think. So a couple of years ago, like, the Warhammer, you know, our Games Workshop, I should say, the company that owns, you know, Warhammer 40K. Several years ago, on their website, they actually advertised a job position for, like, Lore Master or something like that, specifically to, like, keep track of the lore of their universe and stuff like that. I can't help but think that when you have these giant corporations that own these giant IPs with just so many little tiny bits of lore and stories, there's all these little things that end up like working together, that you need somebody that just has all the information of the universe centralized so that you can keep things straight. Why is this never something that big companies think of?
And it doesn't even matter anyway. This could have just been some old contact Poe had from a previous mission. Making him essentially a drug dealer in the past doesn't actually affect anything in the plot. Plus it adds yet another character who's barely gonna play a part in things, but provides a few bits of makes it easy for the characters. I've also seen it speculated that she's introduced here as a potential love interest for Poe, try to discourage Finn and Poe shipping. I'm iffy on that because it's not like any actual romance happens here. Plus, you know, bisexual people exist. Anyway, Zorii...
No, they don't. They're a myth.
brings them to the true breakout character of this film, Babu Frick. I am actually shocked they got away with naming an alien in this all-ages franchise Frick. Sure, it's not an actual F-bomb, but close enough for Disney, I'd say. I kinda love him, too, because he's just this little gremlin puppet thing who's super positive. Point is, though, he explains that they can make him translate it, but only if they perform a complete memory wipe. All of 3PO's experiences will be erased. Which seems odd to me. Wouldn't erasing his memory also erase the memory of the dagger inscription and how to speak Sith? The comic leaves out Finn asking if R2 backs up his memory, with 3PO saying R2's data storage is notoriously awful. And Rey, who's the most sympathetic to droids out of all of them, has to ask the question, you know the odds better than any of us. Do we have a choice? Stupid question. I'm sure there's some expanded universe reason where it takes like 3 weeks to do it, but like... why can't they just back up his memory right now? This is a black market droidsmith shop. You're telling me Babu Frick doesn't have a hard drive sitting around here? But
I mean, black market, that would probably cost extra.
No, basically Rey is giving 3PO the choice here. If this mission fails, it was all for nothing. All we've done, all this time. Plus it will wipe out all my terrible memories of pain and indignity that I have suffered ever since I was first built. Sign me up, Babu Frick! In all seriousness, this is a legit moment for 3PO. It carries a lot of weight for the character given his full history. And sadly, the comic leaves out the moment where he looks at our heroes and admits he's taking one last look at his friends. It's heartwarming and heartbreaking. Although the sentiment is a little hollow when you remember that in the sequel trilogy, he has barely spent any time with these people. Like, aside from this one trip, he's mostly hung out with Poe when he was trying to hijack a ship to further his insane plan in the last movie, and in this one, the rest of them have mostly tolerated him. 3PO has so many good moments in this, and if I have a regret for the sequel trilogy, aside from this movie, R2 should have been in more of it. Yes, I love BB-8, but if there's a single through line throughout the Star Wars movies, it is those two, and this film gives 3PO the most real character development he's had. And it's in service to a stupid plot point about a Sith dagger that's gonna get increasingly silly the more we see. Zorii and Poe head up to be on lookout, and the comic cuts up the setup for their lines, that the First Order has been on the planet for a while now. In particular, kidnapping children to turn into stormtroopers.
Oh,
Zorii
wonderful!
Says she
yeah,
can't
right.
stand it here anymore and is planning to flee to the colonies using a stolen First Order captain's medallion, which apparently grants free passage through any blockade and landing privileges on any vessel. Man, it really says something when the original Empire had better security by at least requiring a password for entry. Any idiot holding this Beyblade apparently can be allowed to land on any ship.
Again, that's one of those things where, again, I'm forgetting the video saw, but like you look in the original trilogy and like a lot of the Admiral stuff like that have like basically their pockets full of these pen things. Apparently those are all like lock keys and stuff like that. Why does none of that exist anymore?
She offers Poe the chance to come with her, but he says he can't walk out on the war until it's over, though he admits he fears that it is. We sent out a call for help at the Battle of Crate. Nobody came. And one Wookiee dies and suddenly we're not the spark that will light the fire anymore, huh, Poe? Everyone is so afraid. They've given up. No, I don't believe that you believe that. Line needed a rewrite. I don't think that you believe that. I'm guilty of doing it too, but I'm a comic book reviewer on YouTube, not a massive movie expected to make $1 billion. They win by making you think you're alone. There's more of us than there are of them. A very good sentiment, especially needed as a reminder for the sometimes terrifying reality many of us find ourselves in. Why is she saying it to him? She's so scared that she's planning to run away, and he's the actual member of the Resistance. Shouldn't this be the other way around?
Yeah, okay, right, of course, yeah, well, I only just realized that, what?
Spot Kylo Ren's Star Destroyer arriving, and Babu Frick finishes the job. 3PO immediately reciting what was on the dagger. The Emperor's Wayfinder is in the Imperial Vaults at Delta 3-6, Transient 9-3-6, bearing 3-2, on a moon in the Endor system. From the southern shore. Only this blade tells. Only this blade tells. Choking hazard. Call toll-free for warranty information. Void where prohibited. Rey suddenly looks at the Star Destroyer and can sense Chewie's alive and on board it. Oh, and we cut the scene where Rey realizes that she recognizes Ochi's ship as the one her parents left on back in the day. I'm sure that wasn't important or anything. Anyway, 3PO's memory is reset, so he introduces himself for the first time, and our heroes decide to see if they can free Chewbacca. Zori gives Poe her MacGuffin medallion, despite her dialogue in the movie making it clear that she despises Poe and is the one who wanted to flee, and he has done nothing to actually endear himself to her again, or make up for whatever happened between them. Because the comic injects what I presume is a deleted scene with Leia and Maz Kanata talking about how much it sucks to be one of the ones who waits to hear if a mission is successful. Leia also mentioning how they haven't really had any time to mourn any of the people who have died, and I'm like, clearly some time must have passed, right? I know the timeline is a bit wonky between Force Awakens and Last Jedi, but it really feels like there's been a time jump between Last Jedi and this movie. Maybe not a huge one, but enough that some hairstyles have changed, the repairs to the lightsaber, our heroes' general familiarity with each other, all that. Also, Leia's playing around with one of the medals from the end of A New Hope for some reason. I mean, I know the reason, we'll be getting to that later, but I mean, within the story of the movie, why she's doing it, I couldn't tell you.
Again, Star Wars the sequel trilogy, wasted potential.
Anyway, our heroes land on the Star Destroyer and start looking for Chewie. Which way? No idea, follow me. Finn said that originally in the movie, not Rey, and either way doesn't make much sense. Finn is a former stormtrooper. While he's not going to know exactly where Chewie is held, he could at least be like, here, we'll go to the nearest brig and start from there. But no, instead they run into a pair of stormtroopers and Rey uses the mind trick on them. It's okay that we're here. You're relieved that we're here. Thank goodness you're here. Welcome, guys. I like that guy on the right. He's Marty, the mellow stormtrooper. They're directed to Chewie, but Rey suddenly senses where the dagger is and that they're going to need it, separating to go retrieve it. Poe and Finn retrieve Chewbacca, and there's a running firefight back to the ship.
Man, nothing about the art. Can I just say, it looks... I mean, granted, I know Chewie basically runs around almost completely naked throughout the entire franchise, but seeing him without, like, the belt or, like, the harnesses or anything that he usually wears looks really weird. That's not just me, right?
Rey retrieves the dagger and suddenly bridges with Kylo again, who's on the planet looking for her. Rey, wherever you are, you're hard to find. You're hard to get rid of. Me to any AI software that asserts that it can be helpful to me.
God,
I
yes.
in the desert because I needed to see it. I needed you to see who you are. That was totally my intention. I totally allowed you to almost kill me by slicing my fighter's wing off. I totally won that. I know the rest of your story, Rey. Were you as disappointed as the rest of us then?
Yeah.
A shot in the arm, and the group are quickly surrounded by stormtroopers to end issue 2. The way this is intercut is a bit different than in the movie, but pretty much conveying the same idea. Rey's confrontation with Ren while our heroes are captured. The comic cuts out Hux' superior, General Pride of the Hux Men. I don't care. Sometimes I just do jokes to amuse myself more than any of you.
Okay, that was obviously a reference to something. I'm just not nerdy enough to know what it was.
Ordering our hero's executions, so it just starts with Hux telling the stormtroopers that he'll do it himself. However, when Hux is handed the gun, he shoots the guard instead and admits that he's the spy. And unfortunately, the comic cuts out another funny line.
I knew it! No, you did not.
So Kylo says that he never lied to Rey back in Last Jedi. Her parents were no one because they chose to be no one.
So what I told you was true, from a certain point of view.
No, shut up, clip I inserted in there myself. We'll break this all down in a few minutes, but we're almost there, people. The moment where this movie completely falls apart. Needless to say, this is the creators trying to cover their asses to retcon what we learned in Last Jedi. Kylo says that she remembers more than she thinks she does, and we get flashbacks of Rey's parents telling her that she needs to be brave and she'll be safe there, that Palpatine sent 𝐸𝐤𝐸 to find her. However, her parents refused to tell her where Rey was, so Palpatine ordered them killed. Damn, if only really powerful Force users had the ability to read people's minds or something! A pity that we never saw anyone who specialized in the dark side of the Force doing just that! Oopsie doodle!
You know, it really is sad when it comes to like retcons and stuff like that. They really do need to be treated like an art form. They honestly do, because like it is so easy to do a retcon that just completely sucks and does not work in the slightest. Especially, you know, the bigger the retcon is, the chances of it being, you know, bad basically grow exponentially. Like, honestly, this should be something they teach in like, honestly thinking about it, that should be something they teach in, like, writing school or something like that. That just the right way to do, you know, the right way and the thought process that should go into making a retcon.
It's actually worse in the movie. Aside from there being no evidence that 𝐸𝐸𝐸 ever brought her parents back to Palpatine so he could at least try that, Rey's mother explicitly yells,
"She isn't on Jakku, she's gone."
Which, you know, you'd think this expert Jedi hunter might think, hey, that sounds like a lie. Maybe I should search Jakku just to be sure. But no, she says that and he stabs them instead.
You magnificent bastard, I read your book!
Perfect strategy. Perfect. So that being said, wasn't 𝐸𝐸𝐸 supposed to be a Jedi hunter? So maybe, you know, the fact that they were a Jedi hunter meant they weren't that good at hunting normal people.
By the way, during this, Rey and Kylo have been dueling with their sabers across the Mind Bridge. It's visually interesting, but kind of nonsensical. Still, the fight leads to the pedestal holding the burnt-out Darth Vader helmet getting smashed, so Kylo realizes where she is. And now he's gonna be pissed that you damaged his collectibles, Rey! In the movie, Rey reunited with the droids and sent them off to join the rest of our heroes before Kylo arrives, but in the comic, they're just there with the others now. Hux leads them to the Millennium Falcon, taken on board after Pisana, and then say they need to blast him in the arm or else the rest will know he betrayed them. Finn shoots him in the leg instead, and asks why he's doing this. I don't care if you win. I need Kylo Ren to lose. Ugh, office politics, am I right? Kylo lands
basically, yeah.
New fighter? I mean, I guess he probably has some spares in the hangar bay.
I mean, honestly, looking at it, that basically looks like... I mean, I could see that being like, you know, basically a basic version of like a souped up one that I just put red paint on. So, I mean, I don't think it'd take that long to like modify an existing one.
Where Rey is waiting for him. Why did the Emperor come for me? Why did he want to kill a child? And here we are, people. Up until this point, while there have been some serious issues with the film, you could argue that a lot of what I brought up are nitpicks. That most people won't think that hard about them. That they're not that important in the grand scheme of things. But then we reach this point. And it was at that moment, me sitting in the theater on opening night, where all my enthusiasm for the movie plummeted to the ground, and I knew there was very little they could do to save it.
Because he saw what you would become. You don't just have power, you have his power. You're his granddaughter. You're a Palpatine.
Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you forever. Fuck yourselves. Go fuck yourselves, you fucks.
Okay, never mind. So I thought she was some sort of weird clone or something like that. No, apparently she's just his granddaughter? I didn't realize he had kids in the first place.
I'm still just in shock, even after all this time, that they thought that this was the right way to go. That this was what the sequel trilogy needed. After all the garbage takes about Rey from sexist chuds, after the beautiful job that The Last Jedi did of trying to say, no, she is not part of some lineage. We are not just repeating story beats from the original trilogy. She's her own person and is wonderful because great, talented, amazing people exist out there
Can come
without
from anywhere,
any kind of
yeah.
inherited power. Rejecting the Nazi-esque ideas about superior bloodlines from your stupid Force bacteria. The creators decided, no, she is definitely special because she inherited power from a powerful bloodline. She is only great because she's related to someone with great power. We are just repeating the same story beat from the original trilogy of being related to someone evil. Some have said we didn't need a story about how a Jedi can be anyone, because the Star Wars universe already has tons of characters who are awesome Jedi with no specific lineage or noble family, for lack of a better term. The thing that I have to sadly keep reminding people, though, as I said in another Star Wars review, most people have only watched the movies. Most people will only see the movies. And as far as the movies are concerned, after the Jedi were wiped out in Revenge of the Sith, the only Jedi left were Yoda and Obi-Wan. Luke would become a Jedi, but is related to Darth Vader and that mighty Skywalker blood. And by the time The Force Awakens rolls around, all the Jedi that he was training are dead too. So now we have Rey, and she is the last Jedi. And in this movie, we discover she has a parental lineage to some other strong Force user. The majority of the audience either doesn't know about or doesn't care/watch the spin-off shows or books or comics or video games. The movies say there is only one Jedi left, and she's connected to a lineage. So unless the next trilogy follows that kid from Canto Bight and his journey to become a Jedi, the characters are just a continuance of some lineage, important because of their families, the divine right of kings. I mean, until it's revealed that that kid is actually the distant relative of Kit Fisto or something.
Or, Jedi Bob, who knows?
And sure, maybe the prequels established Jedi existed elsewhere and could come from anywhere, but the storyline of the prequels does not follow all those other Jedi. It follows the Chosen One and the teacher from the original trilogy. The other Jedi are basically background characters. The message that it sends is, sure, you could be a Jedi, but you don't matter.
You have no place in this story. You come from nothing. You're nothing.
One of the things that baffled me about the response to The Last Jedi was people saying, well, it doesn't continue the story of The Force Awakens, even though it clearly does. For crying out loud, Rey's plot continues immediately after the end of that movie to the point where it creates timeline wonkiness. What I later learned was that people meant that J.J. Abrams set up a bunch of mystery boxes that Rian Johnson never followed up on. And that made me even more baffled because I was trying to figure out what the hell mystery boxes everyone was talking about. Luke disappearing? It's answered in Last Jedi. C-3PO's red arm? Who gives a crap? It's 3PO and he's part of a ragtag resistance movement. It probably got damaged and they replaced it with one from a red android. Yes, I know there's a comic explaining it. Who cares? How did Maz get Luke's saber? Not important! But then it all circles back to Rey. The big mystery box around Rey. Because I have argued time and time again with people about Rey. How could she use the Jedi mind trick on a stormtrooper? How is she so good at piloting the Falcon? Why didn't she ever leave Jakku? How did she beat Kylo Ren? Each of these has an explanation. I've argued those explanations. She's naturally adept at the Force. She's a scavenger and has to know how ships work to know which parts are most valuable. She stayed because she couldn't accept that her parents weren't coming back for her. Kylo was severely injured, and again, the whole adept at the Force thing. And even though in all of those examples, she fails continually. Her first attempt at the mind trick didn't work. She dragged half the Falcon along the ground when she first took off. She accidentally opened the Rastar tanks. She was repeatedly tempted to leave Jakku, but held back even though it would have been easy, and she only started beating Kylo by letting the Force guide her. She's still a mystery box to people that never got an explanation. Even though the explanations are all there. And then I remembered that stormtrooper she mind-tricked in Force Awakens, and a line that sums it all up.
Scavenger scum.
Why is being a scavenger worthy of being scum? They usually use that word for rebels. And when you're on a desert planet with few resources other than nabbing parts, which as we saw in Force Awakens, require knowledge, expertise, and physical skill and endurance most people couldn't handle, what makes that profession scum?
I'm thinking about it. I mean, I could see it, being based off of, you're doing dirty work, you're going through ruins and stuff like that, and also potential theft. Like people saying, oh, you're taking something that isn't yours and, you're making a profit off of it, some, thought process like that. And it could be, just general good old-fashioned classism. Generally, if you're a scavenger, you're not in the best financial position. So, there's going to be a lot of people that, are in a better financial position than you looking down at you because you're just simply poorer than them.
And then it finally hit me. It's the reason why so many audience members can't look past her being a mystery box. She's not a person. She's not a character. She doesn't have talent or skill or anything useful to contribute. She's a puzzle to be solved. And when the answers aren't the ones they want, she's scum. And that's how Abrams and Terrio saw her. Not as a character, the Force's powerful light to balance Kylo Ren's powerful dark, as Luke said in Last Jedi. No. She's powerful because she's related to Palpatine. That's it. She's only important because she's related to somebody else powerful. People can only accept her being good at stuff if she's got that mighty bloodline. And that, my friends, is the divine right of kings bull that I have been decrying about this franchise ever since the prequels. Luke being Vader's son was important because it was a major step on his character journey. It wasn't, he's powerful because he's Vader's son, but then the prequels came along, and Vader was the chosen one. Blessed to the world is the virgin birth Christ allegory and his mighty Jesus blood. He couldn't just be another Jedi who got seduced by the dark side. He had to be, in all caps, important. And thus Luke was important because he was related to him. And to those people who wanted their mystery box, like the creators of this movie and those who could not accept the perfectly reasonable answers about Rey in Force Awakens and Last Jedi, she's only important because she's a Palpatine. Sorry, Yoda, guess we're not luminous beings. This crude matter dictates who gets to be important. Let's hop back a few pages, shall we? Because this reveal also highlights just how dumb some of this actually is.
God. This is what, I know, the movie's been out for, a long time at this point. Just listening to all this and, just all the drama that's surrounding it, I know that sometimes, well, not sometimes, but, people on the internet get very heated for stupid reasons. It just makes you so happy that you're not, regularly in those circles, at all. Because, honestly, as I've said, I didn't like these movies. But, does it not get tiring for people to be this angry about things? I know for me, I hate being angry. My mom has said that, getting angry, it feels good, get it, get that pressure out there, and stuff like that, not to, bury it. And, granted, I will admit in my previous life that I don't talk about things with my family sometimes. But I don't like the feeling of being angry. It's not enjoyable. I don't get a release from it. So the fact that you have people just being so, filled with vitriol over something that literally doesn't really even matter, it is just so sad.
So Kylo in The Last Jedi said that her parents were nobodies, and they try to brush this off by them needing to become nobodies. That is not how that works if the Force power is passed on like it has to Rey.
Yeah.
What's more, in her memories, she saw her parents saying they loved her and needed her to be brave, but instead he said,
They're filthy junk traders who sold you off for drinking money. The dead in a pauper's grave in the Jakku Desert.
It's been suggested that Kylo was lying to Rey, trying to manipulate her into joining his side, even doing the cold reading thing where he doesn't tell her who her parents are, she just establishes it herself and he runs with it. It's a fair point. He could very well have been saying that and not actually know who her parents were. Here's the problem. That is not Kylo Ren's character.
Do I really look like a guy with a plan?
Kylo Ren is an immature, overly emotional, impulsive, blunt instrument who lacks subtlety and control. A Darth Vader fanboy who wants to burn everything down because they don't play by his rules. He lashes out and destroys things around him when things aren't going his way, screaming at the world because he thinks they're not paying attention to him.
No, you're still holding on! Let go! Traitor! Blow that piece of junk out of the sky! More! Did you come back to say you forgive me? To save my soul? I'll destroy her, and you, and all of it.
What girl?
I'm sorry. I'm sure you are.
He said that Kylo Ren had an 8-pack.
Kylo Ren is not a liar. He speaks what he thinks is the truth because he thinks his truth is the only truth. He wants Rey to join him and thinks she will because he thinks she's as broken as he is. He's not trying to manipulate her. He just thinks he knows better than her.
God, again, and like a character like that, again, the whole, as I said, the theme of these movies is just wasted potential. Like, if these movies were better written, I could very much see, you know, those that being like a wonderful villain of a character, somebody who's just this petulant, angry child that never grew up. And like thinking about it, oh God, what's Kylo Ren's actor's name? I am completely forgetting. I'm sorry. Adam Driver, that's it. In the last few years, I can't help but feel that like Adam Driver, he's been very much doing like a Daniel Radcliffe, where like he's been acting in like a lot of these really good roles. But like I can't help but feel that like the goal of them wasn't just, you know, acting and, you know, doing his profession and earning a paycheck, but a lot of them are potentially there to try to distance himself from Star Wars. Like, honestly, I want to know you, anybody watching this, whatever part of the reaction this is, tell me if you feel the same way.
As I said at the start, I heard that there was no actual planned through line for the sequel trilogy. Every other week they kept changing their mind about Rey. She's nobody! She's Obi-Wan's daughter! She's Palpatine's daughter! She's Luke's daughter! Etc., etc. It's ridiculous, and yet really, all it is to, as the tally goes, placate haters of The Last Jedi. Rey can't be nobody, she's too good at everything. How could she possibly beat the trained, super awesome, bleeding to death, whiny, raging powder keg that is Kylo Ren when she has boobs? Well, there you go. It's because she's a Palpatine. Hey, Kylo, what was that lie you didn't tell about selling her for drinking money again? What was their real motivation?
Search your memory. Remember them. See them. They sold you to protect you.
Rey's parents sold her to protect her? Wow, these were terrible parents. Or at least incredibly stupid. Seems to me that if I love my child and want to keep them away from the all-powerful Sith Emperor who can come back from the dead, I'd want to put her someplace safer and more secure than just with some random asshole on a backwater planet where she'll probably stay barely alive because of the greedy, stingy jerkasses who trade food for salvage. I don't know, maybe Jakku used to be a really cool place to live back in the day, but the economy's really hit them hard lately. Without the Empire subsidizing dirt farms, small-town planets like Jakku just can't sustain themselves anymore. I mean, maybe you could have made this work. Like, if it wasn't her parents who did this, but your stupid mercenary Jedi hunter, he decided he didn't want to deliver her, or someone killed him while he made a pit stop and stole his ship and then sold Kid Rey off. I mean, for crying out loud, at least when baby Luke had to live in the desert, he was given to his family to raise him, and Obi-Wan stuck around to keep an eye on him. This plan is just the worst! Now, something that is not the worst that got people tilting their heads was, wait, the Emperor had a kid?
Yeah, exactly.
Who would want to screw his wrinkly old ass? And Yeah, wow, have you not been on the internet very long? Even putting aside how people have different tastes for regular humans, I remind you that an Academy Award-winning movie was about a woman who fell in love with a fish man. People are into some wild stuff.
Yeah, but it's more, people falling in love with Palpatine, the evil raisin that he was.
Hell, it doesn't even have to be someone attracted to him, and I actually know someone who has told me they think Palpatine is hot. It could always just be some person who is an opportunist, attracted to the power of being consort to the Emperor and less into him as a person. Oh, but don't worry,
yeah,
guys,
I guess.
Expanded Universe material explained that he's less an actual son, but rather a clone of Palpatine who didn't have Force powers, and that's why he doesn't look like a store mannequin that's melting. Not that that matters anyway, because that's not in the movie, but like, what? That actually does kind of make her his daughter in a roundabout way. It also makes 𝐤𝐤's actions that much more baffling that they're related. Forget about the expanded universe clone thing. Going by just the movie and comic, these are the Emperor's family, and he doesn't do everything he can to go keep said son and granddaughter alive and found? And on top of all that, why did he go to Pasan? If he was still chasing after Rey, why was he landing there to get eaten by a snake instead of, like, anywhere else? Why did he think that she was on Pasan? Yes, it's not exactly 𝐤𝐤's fault. His profession was Jedi Hunter, not Child Hunter.
Didn't I literally say that earlier in the reaction?
But wait! There's more! After this reveal, Kylo keeps going. What Palpatine doesn't know is that we're a dyad in the Force, Rey. Two that are one.
What are you talking about? Are you just talking rubbish?
What does that mean? What the hell is that supposed to mean? Like, spoilers for the Acolyte, but they had a similar thing going on there, but it made a lot more sense because it was like twins. It was a whole thing. Here it's just two people who just happen to both be powerful in the Force equals two that are one? What the hell does that mean? How does Kylo even know that? I already used the too many questions clip, damn it! But whatever, Kylo does the together we can rule the galaxy spiel, but Rey isn't buying that, and fortunately the Falcon shows up for her to jump onto. They also use the Falcon's engines to blow away the stormtroopers, but this panel makes it look like they're all sliding towards the hangar bay entrance.
Well, for all you know, the Falcon is actually propelled by magnets.
Or at least that the artists used little fallen down action figures for reference. Palpatine contacts Kylo via the Force and reminds him to go kill Rey and not to betray him, or else he'll turn the fleet on him. We cut out Hux' attempt to BS General Pryde about what happened, and him getting shot by Pryde, who says they found their traitor. Here it's just the aftermath. So some have wondered why Hux would suddenly betray the First Order, ignoring, of course, that he says why he's doing so.
I don't care if you win. I need Kylo Ren to lose.
And if you don't get why he wants Ren to fail, well, then you haven't been paying attention, because...
Yeah!
And even then, as he said, he's not actually on the good guy's side. He just hates Kylo Ren that much. But doesn't that undermine his own side too much? As a spy, he only has to give enough information that'll undermine Kylo, not the entire First Order.
I mean, granted, so... I had only known about this scene through, like, memes and stuff I had seen on Twitter and stuff like that. Honestly, I had not heard that previous... I had not seen, the actual scene. It was like, oh, I only need Kylo to lose and stuff like that. Honestly, knowing that, the whole thing of him being the spy actually it does make a lot more sense. Because, it's the whole thing of my enemy and all that. Realistically, he only had to give them enough info to, kill Kylo Ren. I remember when I first saw that clip on, like, Twitter, I was genuinely so confused because I didn't have that second part to, like, really, give me any information.
Honestly, what I was really hoping for was that during one of Kylo's insane ravings or something, Hux finally has enough of Kylo's growing madness and just orders his fleet away, or even pull an Operation Valkyrie on his ass. I'm okay with him dying like this because, yes, he's a friggin' space Nazi. He was never going to be redeemed. He was an asshole and deserved every bad thing that happened to him. And the fact that he goes down unceremoniously, shot by some dude only introduced in this movie, is more dignified than the space Nazi deserved. I'm just sad we didn't embrace the story opportunities. It almost feels like the filmmakers were embarrassed by how Hux kept getting knocked around in Last Jedi and decided to replace him with Richard E. Grant so they could have a more threatening villain. When of course the charm of Hux is that, like all Nazis, he's pathetic. We cut over to Agent Kloss again for another unnecessary scene with Leia, although this time it's Rose. And it's an attempt to fill a plot hole. See, it's kind of weird that nobody noticed a massive fleet of Star Destroyers getting built on Exegol. You kind of need a lot of resources to do that. And so Rose has gone through old Imperial Navy records and discovered gaps in said records. Entire construction stores missing that were no doubt used to build the ships over time, possibly even before the Empire fell. It's appreciated that Rose got some more to do, but this movie already has a clone emperor whose soul can hop into other bodies and moving objects across space via energy field generated by all living beings. I don't think the evil Empire has slowly been making spaceships thing is really that huge a deal at this point. Yeah. The comic cuts a scene where we learn the landing gear on the Falcon is damaged, and Rey tells Finn that she plans to kill the Emperor for what he did to her parents, and also tells him that she's sick of everyone saying that they know her when nobody really does. And I don't know if this was in the original script or if this is an attempt post-movie release to try to fix this, but you know how in Return of the Jedi, the second Death Star was in orbit of the forest moon of Endor, and how colloquially for like 40 years we have just called it Endor? Well, that's the thing. The writers decided that the Death Star wreckage our heroes need to go to is guarded by a bit of an ocean, but it's hard to call it the forest moon of Endor if there's actually a big ocean or body of water in your way. So this particular bit of Death Star 2 wreckage has hit a different moon of Endor, 𝐓𝐢𝐿, aka the ocean moon of Endor. Not that they ever say that in the movie, they just call it Endor as well, and confusing the audience because why the hell would you make Endor so unrecognizable?
I mean, again, there was that whole thing at the beginning of the comic and movie about what was apparently Mustafar, so I mean, it's kind of a trend with this movie and comic adaptation, apparently.
The Falcon, like, half crashes onto the surface, I'm guessing to explain why they don't just fly over the water to the wreckage. Poe points out with the size of the wreck, it could take years to find what they're looking for. Damn, if only you had someone on your team who was not only a skilled scavenger who could probably recognize what areas of this thing are probably not the Imperial Archive, but she has magical powers that help her sense Force-related things like she did earlier with the dagger. But no, it's time for the silliest plot point. And of course, it's that dagger. Rey remembers how it said, "Only this blade tells," and pulls out a secret little extendo bit from the dagger's hilt. If you hold up the dagger a certain way, the dagger is shaped like part of the debris, and the extendo bit points to a particular area.
See, I remember that, but I only just realized, when was this dagger made? I thought it was like some sort of like ancient Sith artifact, not something made after the Death Star was destroyed.
Well, what do you know? It's not every day you see the stupidest thing you've ever seen.
So instead of a post-it note that said, "Hey, remember that the Wayfinder is in the Death Star wreckage," either 𝐸𝐤𝐸 or some other asshole with too much free time carved themselves a dagger in the shape of the wreckage of the Death Star, from a certain point of view, and painstakingly carved out runic symbols in a dead, forbidden language on said dagger, specifically with coordinates and even a repeated message that this dagger is the only thing that tells it. Look, I can believe that Exegol is protected in some way by some kind of navigational hazards or whatever that can only be maneuvered around with this Wayfinder, but that somebody felt the need in the last 2 or 3 or so decades to make this the way of locating the goddamn compass to get to the planet, as if they were hoping this would be some kind of Babu frickin' Indiana Jones puzzle in 1,000 years or whatever. No! Bad movie! Bad! Hell, why would 𝐸𝐤𝐸 even need the damn dagger? He worked for Palpatine already, so presumably he has either been to Exegol, or if he hasn't, he should probably take the Wayfinder, since I'm honestly shocked that the wreckage hasn't been stripped down into the water, so there's nothing left. I mean, if I was some kind of salvage company, or even some scientist or fan of the Emperor, I'd have been going over this place bit by bit to take anything of value, which would probably include the shiny pyramid thing found in the Emperor's throne room. Like, the dagger is completely unnecessary at this point, unless it also served as, like, a physical key to open a box or something containing the Wayfinder. Still silly, but not as silly as the goddamn shape of the thing matching the Death Star wreckage. A group of people approach our heroes on space horseback, and once again, an actual funny joke is cut from the comic.
Rough landing.
I've seen worse.
I've seen better.
We picked up a transmission from someone named Babu Frick. He said you'd come. Babu Frick, the true hero of the Star Wars franchise.
Apparently.
What do you mean Babu frickin' Frick sent out a transmission? Like, not even Zori. Specifically Babu Frick. The tiny little black market droidsmith sent out a message to the Endor system and said, "Hey, whoever is there, some people from the Resistance are coming your way. They're our only hope to stop the First Order. Hope you guys aren't evil. Bye!" What the hell does Babu Frick care about any of this? All he knows is that he got called in to do a memory wipe of 3PO to reveal a translation of the Sith language, and then the ones who did it left. Probably without paying, too. Now there's another line that should have gone mimetic from this movie. Someone named Babu Frick called. I can't even tell if this is dumber than the Sith dagger in the shape of the Death Star wreckage. You make the call! Or Babu Frick will! They explain to the woman, Janna, that they need to get to the wreck, but the water is too violent right now. Their only choice is to try to fix the Falcon to fly over, and she offers to help. While they make repairs, she explains her backstory to Finn. She and the rest of her group are former stormtroopers as well. They mutinied after being ordered to fire on civilians, then stole an old cruiser and came here. I don't even know how it happened. It wasn't a decision, really more like an instinct. A feeling. The Force. The Force brought me here. Brought me to Rey and Poe. Oh, thanks, movie. Not only does the Force only really matter if you're part of a powerful lineage, but you also don't get to have free will or make moral choices of your own. Cool.
Again, I really want to be like a fly on the wall at that meeting. Just, what was going on through their heads when they were writing this? Like, was there actually something, like some sort of thought process behind this, or was it more just panic because, oh god, the movie is, we need to get a script done soon, write whatever works, or doesn't in this case?
Yeah, I'm sure that's not what they mean, but that's the implication now. Finn didn't decide to desert the First Order out of fear and a sense of morality and horror over what they were doing. No. It was the will of the Force. But yeah, former stormtroopers. This was also kind of a thing in the Duel of the Fates script. Some stormtroopers on Coruscant deciding to defect from Finn's example. Given how convoluted and bizarre the dagger thing is, it makes me wonder if that, along with every other part of this script, is a result of the Duel of the Fates script being rewritten over and over. Like, what we're seeing is draft 15. So stuff that at one time made sense, now is just nonsensical without the context it originally had. In any case, the comic includes a bit not in the movie, where Finn admits that with the way Rey talked about knowing things ahead of time, seeing things in visions, it's been happening to him too, but he hasn't figured out how to talk to her about it. Well, just wait until you're about to die and yell, "I'm Force sensitive!" Clearly that's the most appropriate thing to be saying in such a situation. And
again, honestly, like, it's one of those things that I kind of unironically, like, actually do enjoy. Like, watching Linkara and like, other, like, critics of, like, of bad media and stuff like this, where, like, they can actually pass on, like, the feeling and just the internal pain of, like, just how bad something is, even if you're not, like, that well versed with it or that big of a fan of, like, the source material or something like that. Everything I hear about this just makes me want to turn and bang my head into the wall repeatedly.
Again, it doesn't matter here. So what if Finn is Force sensitive? This is the end of the trilogy. Maybe if he, like, saved the day with Force powers he didn't know he had, that'd be cool, but no. This is just nothing. He does apparently get a vision of Rey leaving, which, again, doesn't matter as Poe tells him the same thing right away. She gets a hold of a skimmer to take across the waters, and the Falcon isn't nearly ready to follow. As such, Janna leads Finn to another skimmer while Rey enters the wreckage, her narration explaining her motivations. The Wayfinder leads the way to Exegol. I go there, kill the Emperor, and then this is all over. God, imagine if they made more sequels after this. Somehow Palpatine will return again. The galaxy will be safe. My friends will be safe. Babu Frick will be safe. She locates the Wayfinder, but suddenly has a vision of a dark Sith version of herself wielding a cool double-bladed lightsaber that can flip open or closed. She echoes Leia's "Don't be afraid of who you are" and attacks. Rey is forced back out where Kylo Ren is waiting for her. Look at yourself. You wanted to prove to my mother that you were a Jedi.
but you've proven something else. You can't go back to her now.
Yeah, you can't go back to Leia now that you've seen a cooler lightsaber than the one you have. Why can't she go back exactly? Rey just keeps demanding he hand over the Wayfinder, but he crushes it in his hand and says she's only getting to 𝐸𝐤𝐸 with him. Naturally, she's pissed and this leads to a duel. As their fight goes outside, we see Finn and Jannah crossing the waters fairly easily in the skimmer, a bit not in the movie. I've never seen anyone make it across waters like this. Maybe the Force wants us here. Ask the Force what we're supposed to do next. That's not how the Force works, I think. Between that and the Last Jedi comic adaptation, the writers really wanted to make That's Not How the Force Works a thing in the sequels, when it only really works in Force Awakens. Anyway, they spot the fight, ending issue 3 with Finn yelling, "Rey!" which is frequently a criticism of the film. Finn doesn't actually do much except yell her name. It's not an unwarranted critique. We cut back to the Resistance base, where Leia wants to make one final attempt to try to contact Kylo and turn him from the dark side. In the movie, this had to be done via dialogueless stock footage, while here we get some actual words about this. Or I'm just an old fool. Even Luke couldn't bring Ben back. And if the Jedi Master couldn't pull him away from the dark side, I mean, even after all this time, we still don't know what the hell his deal is about us. How do we even begin to address it? You fear you are not strong enough, but you are— Oh my god, Maz! What the hell's going on with your face?
Like, I know, she already had a weird face, but why is it it's kind of weirdly squished. Here, what's going on? And also, her eyes look way too big. Aren't they supposed to be like a lot smaller?
It's like somebody grabbed that side of it and is yanking really, really hard. You are the heart of the Resistance. You are the one who is strong enough to stay. Oh god, look, in universe and narratively, it's a good line. The problem is that I live in the real world, and in the real world, that is a very uncomfortable line to have when she is the only one of you who is not actually there. Wait, the establishing shot says that this is yesterday? Why the hell is this yesterday? What's the point of this being a flashback? Why isn't it just going on at the same time? What time is it? As the battle rages, and by the way, a kudos I will give to the artist, Will Sliney, is that while they seem to be having trouble keeping Maz's face from migrating off of her, sequences like this have been very well executed. Just incredibly good panel layout anytime Kylo and Rey are facing each other. A repeated motif of a mirror, a duology, a dyad, if you will. Just every single time it is a masterclass in panel layout. The fight comes down to Kylo about to strike down Rey, but then he hears his mother. In the movie, it's just her saying Ben, but in the comic, she says it's not too late for him to return. I'll be with you until the end. Which is in about 5, 4, 3... He drops his saber, and Rey grabs it, stabbing him in the stomach. Leia dies immediately as it happens. After this, Rey reaches down and uses her force healing to repair his injury. I did want to take your hand. Ben's hand. Yeah, but Ben Solo didn't offer his hand. It was Kylo Ren. Because up until this moment, there was no more Ben Solo. God, Rey kept saying over and over, oh, he's so conflicted and feels bad about what he did to his father, but...
Honestly, yeah, again, everything he's done up to this point really proves the complete opposite. God, these writers suck!
We never see that. We never see the supposed issue he had with what he did. We never see him tortured or haunted by it. Never see him angrily defend himself. Even Snoke pushing his buttons about it was more just trying to lure Rey by hinting that he could be redeemed, even though, yeah, no, he was perfectly ready to kill everybody and take over. Even Leia had accepted this at the end of The Last Jedi, but nope, we already decided to repeat the plot point of our hero being connected to an evil guy, so now let's talk about redeeming a bad guy. Rey runs off and...
God, there's one thing with modern movies and shows and stuff like that. Honestly, just why does every villain need to be redeemed? It can be done. It can be done very well. But why do you have to constantly keep doing it? Why can't we just have the evil people die?
Takes Kylo's ship, which is just parked a few feet away for some reason, and she is now leaving her friends and found family behind. The very reason she was doing all this. Cool, awesome, good narrative, guys. Our heroes return to the base and are told of Leia's death, with Chewbacca in particular getting a moment to roar and cry out. Now the last of the original trilogy crew still standing. God, and it was just Life Day too. What the hell is he gonna tell the rest of the Wookiees when their best singer has died? Back with Kylo, Well, as I hinted at earlier, he witnesses a memory of Han Solo, who encourages him to fight for what his mother believed in. They echo the, "I don't know if I have the strength to do it" bit from Force Awakens, though obviously this time he tosses his saber into the water instead, becoming Ben Solo once more. 3 things to note. 1, the comic for some reason decided to have this shot where it looks like Adam Driver is pulling his face back, and it looks awkward and weird.
What was that? I'm sorry, wait, I gotta go back. Okay, future me, man, I'm using that in the thumbnail. Why does he look like Napoleon? His brain was switched with Napoleon Dynamite for a minute there. Oh, God. Every time I see it.
Weird. 2nd, the comic for some reason decided to split this scene in half, including another scene in the middle of the 2 pages. And 3rd, most importantly, this is so lame! As I said, the haunted by his father's death thing would actually have some weight if we ever saw him, you know, haunted by his father's death. But no, getting stabbed, getting healed, and his mommy saying hi to him is enough to turn Kylo from the dark side. It's such a crock. It's not earned at all. One could argue Vader's wasn't earned either, but that just means that you have a second chance to do this right. Or, as I have maintained, Kylo should not have been redeemed at all. He should have been the actual main villain of this movie. Hell, in hindsight, we at least have the retroactive aspect of the prequels to show an Anakin who wasn't evil. We'll never get that with Kylo. We're not given a reason why we should want a redemption arc for him. We never see him as Ben Solo or any positive qualities that Ben had that would make us want to see him turn good, other than the fact that, well, being a bad guy makes Leia and Han bummed out and we actually like them. Why were the creators so averse to admitting, hey, sometimes people who we called family turn out to be really awful people and they will never redeem themselves and it's okay to reject them?
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why you know, many people don't see certain family members over the holidays anymore. It's something that happens in real life.
Hell, much as I dislike Kylo's redemption because I wanted him to be a bad guy we hadn't seen before in the movies, I can see a redemption arc for him that he comes to after struggling over the course of the movie. And I mean really struggling. It's a hard pill to swallow given the rage and murder and atrocities he's committed, but this was nothing! Is it weird that Chris Terrio wrote 2 movies featuring a powerful character talking with their ghost dad? At least Han Solo didn't tell him that helping people is bad, I guess. In any case, a Star Destroyer is dispatched by the Emperor to attack 𝐤𝐞𝐫. And it reveals that it has a planet-destroying laser on it. Why did each of the sequel trilogy need to have Death Star tech in it? Was that the big takeaway from the franchise by the creators? I mean, at least with Last Jedi, it was miniaturized, designed to punch a hole in a bunker. This is just, say, you know what defines Star Wars? Planet killer lasers. That's what we need here. Like, a massive new Empire fleet was enough. Why did we need this too? The Emperor sent a ship from 𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸. Does that mean every ship in the fleet has planet-killing weapons? Of course they do. All of them. No, all you know is that the one ship has it. I mean, he's right, but for all you know, that's the extent of the resources necessary to do that. But whatever, Palpatine sends a new message. Listen, it's on every frequency, but primarily the Fortnite ones. The Resistance is dead. The Sith flame will burn. All worlds surrender or die. The final order begins. Oh, wait, no, that's just the Fox News signal. Let me try to find Palpatine's transmission. The comic cuts out that Poe is made acting general. For some reason, he's a pilot. Yeah, Leia was prepping him a bit for leadership in Last Jedi, but, like, there were no other leaders who actually, you know, led? But it doesn't matter much as Poe sits over Leia's body and contemplates how crappy this whole situation is and how he's not ready. Lando is here now, though, I guess. Neither were we. Luke, Han, Leia, me, who's ever ready? They were? They were, in fact, quite ready. They happily stepped into danger and were ready to take on the whole Empire after many, many exciting adventures both on and off screen.
Yeah, that was kind of the whole thing of the original trilogy.
How'd you do it? Defeat an empire with almost nothing. We had each other. That's how we won. Aw, that's sweet. No, that's not in fact how you won. You were all separated from each other, and you actually had a big-ass fleet, a Hail Mary effort by a Jedi to turn one of the villains into a good guy, and some teddy bears who helped a commando raid blow up a shield generator.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot more than literally nothing, so... Oh, God, again, these movies sucked. Again, like, I honestly think this review is going to make it so I don't watch anything Star Wars related for, you know, the next decade or so at the very least. Like, it's just so much money that, you know, I'm not going to be wasting on this franchise.
That is how you won, not the power of friendship. I love the power of friendship, but that ain't what saved the day. Hell, even if that was how you did it, Rey is separated from you now. Your movie's message about the power of friendship conquering all might have held some weight if the group was all together, which would be awesome about emphasizing that found family thing that works well for a Rey who had crappy parents. But we don't have that Rey anymore. So instead, we have the craptacular version of Rey, who is connected to a lineage. Thus, the found family stuff can go piss off as far as this film is concerned. These are just empty platitudes. Ugh. Anyway, scenes are reordered a bit. In the movie, Finn learns that Dio has a bunch of information about 𝐸𝐤 because 𝐸𝐤 was going there, but also that the Emperor wanted Rey alive, not killed. Also, Poe makes Finn a general in a brief exchange. I guess I remembered the movie wrong because one of the things I originally walked away from it that I was mad about was how the main characters suddenly seemed to just hate being around each other when Force Awakens had done such a great job making them like each other and be friendly. But rewatching the movie for this review, I'm completely off base. They're still great friends with each other. Again, could have been great for found family, but who gives a crap, right?
Yeah,
so
who cares?
Moved back. Instead, Rey has traveled back to 𝐸𝐤 and crashed the fighter. The dialogue here is condensed for better and worse, probably because we're running out of comic when we still have a little under an hour of movie left.
Oh,
This
God.
movie is paced badly, too.
Why was this only 5 issues instead of 6? Like, whose decision was that? Were they trying to save on paper?
Cramming in so much to the point where it feels like we're approaching a natural end by now. Rey tosses Luke's lightsaber at the flaming wreckage. Well, it's supposed to be her throwing it, but with the way it's drawn, it looks like it's being yanked telekinetically from her hand. But it's caught by Luke's Force Ghost. A Jedi's weapon deserves more respect. The first thing you did after I handed it to you was toss it away. Okay, the truth is that the thing has finally fallen out of warranty and we can't afford replacement parts. Happy? He asks her what she's doing and she explains her vision of being on the Sith throne. Didn't that same vision include 𝐸𝐤, but then you healed him? A line cut here is that she intends to do what Luke did, become a hermit on 𝐸𝐤. However, Luke then admits that he was wrong and it was fear that kept him there, asking what she's most afraid of, which, you know, seems like a stupid question when she just said that she was afraid of her vision, that she's afraid of herself. Must be why the comic just has him say, "You're afraid of yourself. Because you're a Palpatine." Makes sense that he knows. He's a Force ghost now. He's watching over her from Force Purgatory or wherever the hell Force ghosts hang out.
Leia knew it too.
What?
Leia knew it too. Look, if you're not going to take this seriously, I'm out.
God, I love that he's, you know, he basically voices Luke Skywalker in anything.
Like, it works with the line of Leia saying not to be afraid of herself, but when did she find out? How? Like with so many other things, it doesn't even matter narratively, and instead adds a whole slew of questions. Thankfully, the comic cuts that line. I don't doubt Leia would have still cared for Rey and trained her even knowing that. It's just a problem of, how the hell did she find out before literally everyone else? Luke reminds her that there are things stronger than blood. Confronting fear is the destiny of a Jedi. So, the Jedi are just Green Lanterns? If you don't face Palpatine,
either that or therapists,
it will mean the end of the Jedi, and the war will be lost. Why am I adding to the tally there? Because the point of the end of The Last Jedi and Luke's declaration of how he will not be the last Jedi in that is that the Jedi won't end just because he's not there to train them. That little kid from Canto Bight heard the stories about the Jedi and can become one himself. It's not about books or lifting rocks or anything like that. The Force will still be there. Even Luke explained that in the film.
That Force does not belong to the Jedi. To say that if the Jedi die, the light dies is vanity.
But no, here comes this movie to tell you that Rey needs to be the one to fight him because everything will be lost otherwise. There was a theory I saw going around when the title of this movie was announced that maybe the Jedi would indeed end, but the legacy of the Jedi contains just as much dark deeds and underhanded dealings in the name of the light, that maybe what the title referred to was the birth of a new, better organization. The Skywalkers. Nope, just same old, same old.
Again, just... honestly, maybe I should just keep a tracker of it, but just so much wasted potential. I mean, like, from what I do know of like, expanded lore and stuff like that, you know, the Sith weren't the only, like, dark side users in, you know, the Star Wars galaxy's history. They were just, you know, the most recent prominent ones. And like the Sith, they weren't, it wasn't even started as a religious order or something like that. It started out as an alien, like, empire or something like that. So, like, the idea of, you know, these organizations rising and falling, but there's always the dark and the light side, that you always have new organizations coming up to kind of, like, represent and try to keep, like, take over or keep balance and stuff like that. That works. That sounds wonderful. Again, this whole thing, it just hurts so much.
Luke brings Rey to something that Leia would have wanted her to have, her old lightsaber. In a flashback, he says at the end of her training, she sensed the death of her son at the end of her Jedi path and surrendered the saber to him, that someone else would finish her journey with it. I am confused what the hell that's supposed to mean. Like,
what?
If she became a Jedi, Ben would die, and she foresaw someone else picking it up for her instead? Did it also tell her about Snoke and Palpatine somehow returning and Babu Frick? What the hell? 1,000 generations live in you now. Better start making some room. It's gonna get crowded. Rey says she can't go to 𝐓𝐤𝐞𝐫. She destroyed the ship she came in and the Wayfinder is gone. Luke says she has everything she needs and she returns to the burnt-out ship, discovering the Wayfinder Kylo Ren had gotten at the start. She still needs a ship, but oh, see? Luke is lifting his X-Wing out of the water. He couldn't do that in Empire Strikes Back, but he can now. Hell, in the movie, the music from that scene is playing. And that's important for Rey's character because she didn't think the Force could do that. I mean, that must be the reason for it, since that was the point of the original scene, that Luke didn't truly understand the Force and needed that moment to experience the awe and power of it. It couldn't possibly be just blatant, pointless fan service to make an original trilogy character look cool instead of, you know, doing anything to advance the main character of this trilogy. People disliked how the sequel trilogy killed or sidelined the original trio of Luke, Han, and Leia. Thing is, though, it's not their story anymore. They had their trilogy. They had their story. They had the most interesting part of their lives told. The sequel trilogy is about Rey, Finn, Poe, and Kylo. Their journeys, their character arcs, the most interesting parts of their lives. And if Disney continues to make more movies in several years, it'll hopefully be the stories of other new characters with the heroes of the sequel trilogy sidelined, because their stories have now been told, and it's time for someone else.
I mean, you say that, but then with everything that's been going on, who knows? They might just make it, like, literally direct things where they just pull in the characters for new stories. I do not see good things in the future of the movies.
These are not superhero comic books. Actors age, die, and are replaced with others, so let the movies do the same thing. We're gonna talk some more about this later, but I despise how Disney calls the main series of movies the Skywalker saga. It is so disrespectful to the sequel characters. Sorry guys, these aren't your movies. It's still about the same friggin' lineage. You're not your own characters. You are defined by your relationship to the original trilogy's characters. By the way, is it just me, or does Luke look like crap in these scenes? Like, they put him in the white Jedi robes, but his hair, probably a wig, looks even stringier and more unkempt than in Last Jedi, where he was supposed to be scruffier and all. The robes also don't look like they fit right, making him bulkier and without a neck. How do you do that? Anyway, back with the Resistance, 3PO meets up with R2, who indeed uses a memory backup to restore his memories right up until they left on the mission. Which feels like it undercuts the whole sacrifice he made for his memories and everything. It's not the worst thing in the world. There's still some loss there and a tragedy in that he doesn't remember making the sacrifice, but still. Sucks that there are no actual consequences to that. Our heroes download data on 𝐓𝐤𝐞𝐫 to their computers, showing that the atmosphere of the place is hellish. How does a fleet even take off like that? Well, I'd presume they'd build them in space? In a shipyard? Hell, we've seen a Star Destroyer being assembled that was already floating in the air, so... They get a transmission from Rey and Luke's X-Wing, transmitting waypoints to show the Resistance how to get to 𝐸𝐤𝐸. From there, they assemble their plan. They think, for whatever reason, that the Star Destroyers haven't been launched yet. They're vulnerable on the planet's surface until they leave the atmosphere. Said atmosphere is wreaking havoc on their navigational systems, so they need some kind of signal from a nav tower on how to safely exit. If they can destroy that tower before they hit the atmosphere, the Star Destroyers will be vulnerable to an aerial attack. Rose's research indicates that hitting their Death Star cannons will ignite their main reactors. Thus, that's their window to pull this off. The movie includes this line.
We need to put some holdo maneuvers. Do some real damage.
Come on, that movie is 1 in a million.
God. Again, the whole smashing of the light speed again. Ah!
And that was pretty blatant given the amount of people who complained about it, and especially no one would be thinking about it in a time like this, given it's a suicide move. I don't really expect a bunch of Resistance members to jump to light speed to take out a single Star Destroyer or anything. The comic wisely cuts it out, instead talking about how they're still not exactly equipped with a huge fleet, mostly fighter craft. Lando and Chewie are going to head to the core systems and try to recruit people out there to join them for the mission. The First Order wins by making us think we're alone. We're not alone. Especially not you, two-headed pod race announcer voiced by Greg Proops. You're especially never alone.
I mean, quite literally in that case, okay.
That brings us to the final issue of this mess. We cut out the brief speech Poe and Finn give in the montage leading up to the Resistance departing. It's a decent one, but the comic includes instead Lando's message to the core worlds. And sadly, it's kind of better. This is General Lando Calrissian. If you're listening to this broadcast, you're our last hope. God, imagine the poor schmoes just trying to watch that Harvey Korman cooking show from the holiday special, but it keeps getting interrupted by assholes making big transmissions to the galaxy every other hour.
I just want to watch my cooking show reruns. Please stop bothering me.
You've all heard the threats. The final order is coming for us. And we've lost our leader, General Leia Organa. She spent her whole life toppling tyrants, fighting to bring freedom to the galaxy. She never gave up. And when you were too scared to stand against the First Order, she stood for you. But now, Leia's gone. She can't fight for us anymore. So without her, here's what I think is a radical but fair plan. Our unconditional surrender. Who's with me? Leia believed that just a spark of hope could bring down this so-called final order. Maybe it's the old gambler in me, but I'm betting everything that she was right. Admittedly, I also cheated at gambling, so... Time and again, I've seen us dealt some of the worst hands imaginable.
What is this card? Rules for drawn stud poker?
But we're still here. And we're still fighting. Not for Leia or her memory. She wouldn't want that. She'd tell you to fight for yourselves. That it's up to all of us to keep that light alive now. But we can't make it through this night alone. And people turn off the transmission because he's about to ask for political fundraising.
Oh God, no, yeah, that definitely does sound like a political commercial, doesn't it? Oh God.
While Rey lands and descends to Palpatine's chamber, the Resistance arrives and targets the tower. Pride's Star Destroyer detects this and orders them to switch the navigation signal to their ship so they can guide the fleet out themselves. I don't know how that's supposed to work since, you know, if they can do that, why do they even have a tower? But whatever. We're finally in the home stretch of this mess. Rey approaches Palpatine's throne room.
Long have I waited for my grandchild to come home. I have so many Christmas cards for you, so many cookies that I have baked.
This was my final hope when watching the movie in the theater, that Palpatine was gonna laugh and say,
"Yeah, I made up that thing about you being my granddaughter to manipulate Ren. You're some nobody who's strong in the Force."
But nope. Oh, but Palpatine also claims that he never wanted her dead. That's why he sent a Jedi Hunter assassin to get her, and then told Ren to kill her. Because this movie is stupid.
Again, like, this is just making sure I never spend money on anything Star Wars related for the rest of my life.
Yeah. Ochi may have just been trying to grab her, and he figured Ren could either corrupt her or make her join him in an attempt to assassinate him or whatever, but let's move on. See, they need to have a reason why Rey doesn't just slice his head off and be done with it.
Your hatred, your anger, you want to kill me. That is what I want. Kill me, and my spirit will pass into you, as all the Sith live in me.
Okay, that sounds like bullcrap. You are full of it. Because why would you tell her that? Just be like, "Mwahaha, I'm the Sith Emperor, and if you don't serve me, I'll fight you," and then let her kill you just to get it done. I mean, Palpatine is an arrogant dick, but like, if you tell her your plan, she could just be like, "Okay, I won't kill you, but I can slice your arms and legs off and burn your lips shut. How's about that?"
Again, so remember, I'm fairly certain, this is very much a 15th draft sort of problem. This was rewritten too many times.
No, this is spin doctoring. Oh, also, all the Sith live in me? The hell is that supposed to mean? Were you planning on absorbing Darth Vader at some point, too? What about all the Sith cultists who helped work with you here? And like, just as new Jedi are constantly being born, so are new Sith. There's always going to be somebody who's like, "Yeah, I want to use my magical powers for profit and gain. Woo, Sith," and all that. Or were you just going to drink every Sith you ever came across? But whatever. Race...
I mean, no, what little I do know about Palpatine, that very much does sound like something he'd do.
Says she doesn't hate him, which feels like it should mean something, like, again, the culmination of a journey or character arc, but it's not
that didn't happen.
This is not what her arc has been. There is an argument to be made about Rey's parentage being related to Palpatine working, because then it becomes a story about overcoming an evil legacy and forging your own path. Even Poe's own revised backstory seems to be about that as a drug dealer who turned to good, and Finn learning of other stormtroopers who deserted like him. But that's an aspect introduced only in this movie. It's not what their character arcs were in the other two. Hell, is Rey even ever actually tempted? Luke wasn't tempted either. It was just murder in anger equals dark side. She always rejected the evil lineage. She never wanted to be a part of that, even ready to go be a hermit like Luke. Criminy, the Emperor actually kind of sucks at this. I think the only time he ever actually turned someone evil was Anakin. And even then, it wasn't seduced by the dark side. It was, "I'm afraid my wife is going to die in childbirth despite her being an influential senator in a technological utopia that has robots acting as doctors and nurses."
Yeah, the more you say about it, the more a lot of the plot points in Star Wars really don't make any sense when you put them up to, like, really any level of scrutiny. Imagine that!
Was every writer in these movies just afraid that if we ever showed characters truly tempted by the power of the dark side, it'd make people want to join their side because of how cool it sounded? Actually, never mind. Given the state of the world, I could totally see that as a concern. Hey.
This is thinking about it. I remember I used to love watching another, one of my other favorite creators I used to watch who used to be on Channel Awesome, was Spoonie, the Spoonie one from the Spoonie Experiments. And one of his things was he used to talk about, like, stories about, tabletop gaming when he was younger and stuff like that. And one of them was on a Star Wars, Star Wars tabletop game where you could, like, be a Jedi or a Sith, and you put points to get, like, light side powers and points to get dark side powers and stuff like that. And, like, he said that one of the things that always happened, one of the things that always happened was people always put all their stats into, like, combat points, and they'd always have the same backstory, but, like, oh, they were a Sith that became a Jedi, so they always had a few dark side points, just enough so they have, like, Sith lightning and stuff like that. And given that I can't help but wonder, like, how often, like, that might have been a thing that actually happened in universe. Like, I know, like, gray Jedi were a thing. I think that's why Mace Windu's lightsaber was purple or something, if I remember correctly.
Hey, here's an idea. You brought back Palpatine, fine. You wanted to be connected to Rey somehow? Fine. Instead of her being his granddaughter and all that crap that comes from that, let's go back again to the Darth Plagueis story where we got the unnatural line and all that. There was always an implication, just an implication, never confirmed in the movies, that Palpatine had somehow used the Force to summon Anakin into existence, manipulated the midichlorians to create life itself. How about we actually confirm that with Rey? Rey is not actually born. Palpatine somehow managed to create life, not even impregnating a woman, but creating a powerful Force-sensitive being out of nothing. To be his agent, to be his vessel, whatever bullcrap. But something goes wrong and the baby ends up on Jakku with exactly what Kylo describes. A couple of junk traders who sold her for drinking money. Yes, it's not perfect. It still has the problem of her being super special amazing because she was connected to powerful beings instead of just being a complete rando.
But at the same time, it is certainly a lot better than what we got.
but that does mean that she still became her own person. She's not from a lineage, she is literally just Rey. That's it. And she forges her own path for herself and makes her own family. It preserves the themes from Last Jedi and pays off all that supposed mystery box bullcrap about her. Hell, it gives an interesting contrast. Instead of her being the powerful light to counter Kylo's powerful dark, it's the other way around. To maintain balance, the Force made Kylo the powerful dark side user to counter her powerful light. And Palpatine fears her because he knows what he created and knows she's his undoing. Let's get back to the rest of our heroes. Finn stopped by to pick up Jan.
Wasted potential! Can we just call that, that's just basically the name of these movies now. They're not the sequel trilogy, they're the Wasted Potential trilogy.
Anna and her troops to help in this whole thing, and they land on Pride's Star Destroyer to destroy the navigation tower on their ship. And you know what? Great action set piece. Fighting on space horseback atop an actual Star Destroyer. That is pretty cool, unique, and exciting for the climax of the movie. They succeed, but Finn can sense that they're resetting their systems to do this again, so goes with Janna to stop them. Palpatine shows Rey the battle overhead and, like with Luke, because we're just repeating bits of Return of the Jedi now, tries to get her to attack him via her anger and fear about the fate of the Resistance. This would, of course, be incredibly stupid, since it's not like Palpatine will save them after he possesses her body, but hey, it's a bit of a stressful situation going on here. But let's add another wrinkle.
What did I say before about, anger not being the best emotion for, clear and logical thinking?
To that. Somehow, Ben Solo has arrived! Yeah, he apparently commandeered a TIE fighter from somewhere? I don't know, maybe he found one in the Death Star wreckage? Whatever, point is, apparently you only need a wayfinder the first time to get here. It's like riding a bicycle in the Hellscape planet. The comic cuts out Finn and Janna commandeering a turret to fire on the destroyer's command deck, other than a single panel because we're really rushing to the end here, while Ben is confronted by the Knights of Ren. Oh man, this is such a significant moment for his character! All the times they've shared together! Remember that one time when they
existed?
Stood next to him? Palpatine rambles about this all being a ritual, and I just realized that this scene is actually kind of ripping off the one in Snoke's throne room in Last Jedi. Yeah, the villain is arrogantly describing what a character will do, particularly involving using a lightsaber to strike someone down, but boom, it's a fake out, and they're actually joining forces against guys in red armor and wielding unique weapons. In this case, Rey using the Force teleportation thingy to give Ben Luke's saber. This means something, I guess, for Palpatine, because he suddenly backs off and lets his guards attack her.
I'm just gonna say it, is it just me, or is it really weird that, out of all the weird, sci-fi clothing you see, just seeing him here, just wearing, a normal, t-shirt like I'm wearing, just seems, really odd and out of place.
Can he only be killed by that saber? What difference does it make, dude? By the by, giving her Leia's saber, I hate it. Why? Because this goes back to that whole lineage and whose story this is. She's saddled with the baggage of someone else, the identity of someone else, the legacy of someone else, as opposed to just being her own person. She's been using Luke's saber this whole time. It gets broken in Last Jedi, but she's using it again until
because
now,
she somehow
she takes
fixed
up
it.
Leia's saber instead. She doesn't get to have her own saber in this story, she inherits it. So here's another idea for how we can still make this work with the stupid Rey Palpatine reveal. The theme for Rey is now forging your own path separate from your bloodline. It feels at odds with what we had before, but we can make this work and still have a satisfying story. You want to know the first way you do it? She refuses to use Luke's lightsaber. If she's gonna make her own path, she's gonna build her own. Hey, she was at the first Jedi temple after all. She can scrounge through the ruins of the tree and find a kyber crystal, and we see her assemble a lightsaber. Something we've never actually seen in one of these movies. It'd be a cool moment, unique for this film, and solidifies, no, I am not Palpatine's granddaughter, I am Rey, and that's who I define myself as.
Yeah, you know what? That is something. I've never realized that before. You never actually see them actually build a lightsaber in the movies. I know they've done that a couple of times in the shows and stuff like that. But out of the two lightsabers that, that Luke had, you never see them put together at all. Not even in the prequel trilogy do you see anybody put a lightsaber together. Even when the Jedi Order was still fully a thing.
Oh wait, no, I'm sorry. She needs to use Luke or Leia's lightsaber because she's actually being adopted into their lineage at the end. Gotta continue the royal bloodline. Can't be your own person. This is the Skywalker saga after all. I mean, screw me, people. She could even hand Luke's lightsaber over to Kylo while she forges her own path. He embraces his light side lineage. She makes something new for herself. Just like, even the bad decisions have things that could have worked, could have been powerful, but I guess that's not as important as a Sith dagger that looks like Death Star debris. Anyway, Ben and Rey are reunited. Palpatine uses the Force on them, but doing so suddenly starts draining their life force, I guess. And that starts regenerating his craptacular clone body.
The life force of your bond. A dyad in the Force. A power like life itself.
Oh, silly me. That's what a dyad in the Force means. A life force you can suck up. This is what the sequel trilogy's been building up to, huh? But yeah, he drains them and things are not going well up above. Poe apologizes to his forces, saying there are just too many of them. And then Lando arrives. But there are more of us, Poe. There are more of us. The true message of Star Wars is numbers. Okay, I'll grant you, in my rewatch, there is something pretty exciting to having this massive fleet show up while the Star Wars ending credits music plays, though I think a lot of that is on the strength of John Williams. Something they cut for the comic is Pride asking where the hell this Navy came from.
It's not a Navy, sir, it's just people.
Meaning what exactly? Oh, it's just people. Like, are you saying the real resistance was in all of us?
I mean, isn't that generally what a Navy is? Like this isn't the Clone Wars. They don't have droids flying the ship. It's still people.
It's the friends we made along the way? How does this thematically connect with the rest of the movie? It's presented like it's some thematic punctuation mark, like when the Joker's plan in The Dark Knight fails, or all of George Bailey's friends coming to help him in the end of It's a Wonderful Life. The proof of the thesis statement of the story. But it's not! We weren't building up to this! We saw one planet the First Order was oppressing, the other one was just having a happy festival without any issues. You know what? I take it all back. It's exactly what they said it is. It's just people. Nothing more, nothing less. There is no message from it, it's just people. People are just here now. If I wanted to be cynical, I could say the real meaning was, I am angry that nobody came to the Resistance's aid on Crate, so now everybody is coming to them. I hate The Last Jedi. And what's funny is that this line would have worked if they had actually kept Rey's family being nobodies, because then it does thematically fit. Average people doing extraordinary things. Yes, I will grant you that it's set up with what Zori said, but here's the real stinger. This doesn't actually affect anything in the plot. The Emperor is unfazed by this, and it's actually going to come down to Jedi and Sith crap. Plus, it kind of feels like it hurts Poe's plot, because it wasn't him who rallied everybody, becoming the true leader of the Resistance at this moment. It was Lando! Oh, and the biggest sin of the comic adaptation is that it doesn't show us Zori and the real hero of the movie, Babu Frick, also joining the fight like in the film. So yeah, as I said, Star Destroyers are getting blown up left and right, but Palpatine's just gloating about his restored life. Also, the comic doesn't show the hundreds, if not thousands, of Sith cultists just hanging out in this big arena for some reason.
God, I've only just realized, like, it feels like we're almost done with the comic itself. And yet, at the same time, there's still 16 minutes of this video left. Like, honestly, I honestly... This whole thing, it gets, like... it's funny. I'm very much a history nerd. I know this doesn't have anything to do with it, but, just stick with me for a second. If you go into the history of Russia, a lot of Russian history can be summed up with the words, and then it got worse. That single phrase can just so easily sum up these movies, and this movie in particular. The movie sucked, but then it got worse. Like, it is honestly a victim of Disney's just like need for like quote unquote perfection. It was constantly rewritten. It overinflated budgets. Who knows how many things were reshot. And by the end of it, directors were constantly changed throughout every movie. There was no consistent plot. And by the end of it, you were left with this giant multi-million-dollar stain on an otherwise wonderful franchise. That may have had, flaws, but at least at one point or another was seemingly more or less consistent. And yet, then it got worse. Honestly, I mean, granted, there is the excitement. It's like, oh, I was in a Star Wars movie, but at the same time, like, I can't help but feel sorry for just every actor and actress that's had their name, like, attached to this movie and has to forever have it stained their resume.
Do they play sports in this place when they're not doing evil spirit possession rituals? But yeah,
Probably.
Palpatine fires the biggest force lightning ever into the sky and starts zapping ships out. Rey wakes up and looks at all this, finally able to commune with the voices of the Jedi, and it is done so poorly in the movie itself. Like, it wasn't until Yoda's voice came in that I understood what was happening. The sound mixing was so bad and so quiet that I couldn't hear what the hell they were saying, or even what it was that she was hearing. Even now, I had to turn up the volume on my computer to hear it. The comic will do it better in a bit. At the very least, I can read the word bubbles, even if there isn't a face attached to them. Yeah. Palpatine sees her rise up and shoots her with the lightning. Fortunately, with Obi-Wan's voice being one of the Jedi she hears, she suddenly learns how to use her lightsaber to block the lightning. I'm guessing.
You are nothing. A scavenger girl is no match for the power in me.
A line that would have worked much better if indeed she was unrelated to Palpatine and just a nobody, but as Kylo Ren said, she has his power, so...
I am all the Sith!
And I am all the Jedi. All 19 of them by my count. Yeah, a better visual representation of this moment than the movie gave, where she just pulls a second lightsaber, no visuals of other Jedi, and walks close enough for his lightning to reflect back at him and, like, gooify his body. You'd think after the second time this happened, he learned how to turn the damn Force lightning off, but...
Maybe it's one of those things, like, it's not automatic control. You start it, and then it's on a timer before it automatically ends, and before it ends, you're just kind of at its mercy and make sure it's pointing in the way you want it to.
Palpatine's kind of a one-trick pony, you know? It's not shown in the comic, but this causes a huge blast in the area that kills all the Sith cultists, so, like, the Guardians of Peace and Justice slaughtered a whole lot of people right there. The comic, needing to condense things, doesn't show Finn and Janna taking out the command ship bridge and needing to be rescued by Poe. Oh no, wait, I'm sorry, Lando undermines Poe getting to do stuff again and is the one who saves the two. And hey, I love Lando, I'm just saying the movie seems to prefer him to one of our leads. Rey collapses, dying from the effort as Ben Solo approaches her. With the last of his strength, he gives her back the life force she used before to save him. She kisses him.
Well, it's hardly worth it, but boo!
And as Ben dies, we see a flashback of him as a baby, a child, and learning under Luke. Yeah, remember all those happy times, like when he murdered his father, or tortured you, or tried to kill all your friends, or throw you into a tree, or... Yeah, I have never understood the idea of a romance between these two. Sure, ship whoever you want, not my thing, and I don't judge, but this kind of goes back to the problem of a redemption arc for him. We're never shown a reason why we should want a redemption other than being a bad guy is bad, and we are continually shown reasons why he is an evil bastard who should have been on the receiving end of a lightsaber a long while ago. If he was going to be redeemed, he needed to actually do things to be redeemed. He showed up here and then affected nothing. He got shoved off a cliff and then healed Rey. And he only healed Rey because the creators decided that Rey should die after that whole thing, so Ben can heal her and then die as part of his redemption. Just like Vader, but not as good. Oh, and in the movie, both him and Leia's bodies disappear and they become one with the Force or whatever, because I guess that's just how all Jedi die now.
I'm honestly so tired. I am honestly so tired of this.
The movie shows a montage of Star Destroyers falling across the galaxy, and there's a meta reason why, we'll talk about that in a minute, that is not featured in the comic. Instead, Luke and Leia's Force ghosts talk. They really pulled it off, Luke. Didn't doubt it for a minute. After all, we are what they grow beyond. You, maybe. I flew through space once. Honestly, if you'd given me 5 minutes with Palpatine, I'd have been done with him a lot faster. Yeah, the ending celebrations are really truncated, though in the corner you can see Maz giving Chewbacca the medal. Oh, the medal. The medal he didn't get in A New Hope. Yeah. It's nice that he got it. It's nice that he got his token finally. You know, right? That's what matters. I mean, there was such a mistake from the original Star Wars, right? Everybody pointed it out, made jokes about it. Ha ha ha! Let's finally fix that, right? I originally wrote a big rant about this years ago as I was writing the script, but like, we're at the end. I'm so tired, and who gives a damn? I'm just going to say that this is the bronze medal for the sequel trilogy, and it's only bronze because they don't make medals with crappier metal beyond that. Oh, by the by, the medal thing was in the Trevorrow script too. It was equally dumb there. Another bit they cut is where it's implied that Janna might be Lando's daughter. I mean, why not at this point? Everybody's related to somebody. Poe, you are the son of C-3PO. After all, your name's Poe. P-O. Boom! I just blew your minds. Rey reunites with Poe and Finn, hugging them, and this is where the movie should have ended. It's no yub-nub, but her reuniting with found family, perfect. Nope, one more scene from the movie and one more page of comic. Rey heads to the moisture farm. Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru's moisture farm, now half buried in the sand. She buries Luke and Leia's lightsabers and reveals that she has her own new yellow-bladed lightsaber for herself. The one that she should have been using this entire goddamn time. Some random woman walks up to her. There's been no one for so long. Really? Just spent a lot of time wondering why nobody is hanging around the moisture farm where there were 2 charred skeletons out front? You must have a lot of free time, lady. Who are you? I'm Rey. Rey who? Rey Frick. No, she says Rey Skywalker. And so our comic and the movie, the Star Wars saga, ends with her watching the 2 suns set. This comic, as an adaptation of Rise of Skywalker, is mostly fine. It hits the major plot beats, and I understand why they made a lot of the cuts they did. Some of the things they added were an improvement, but not by much, and plenty of it was still garbage. And there's no adaptation that'll save this crap movie. Let's start with that ending. There is no reason for her to bury the lightsabers at the moisture farm. None. This isn't Luke's home. He went away from it. He didn't want to be there. He spent the first act of A New Hope trying to leave. The expanded universe did have a story or two about letting other people run the moisture farm because, hey, he did love his aunt and uncle and probably wanted something better for them, but he otherwise wanted nothing to do with it. But at least Luke lived there for a good chunk of his life, was raised there. Leia's lightsaber has no reason to be buried there.
Yeah, she was raised by a completely different family. I think she was raised by, like, royalty or something. That's why she was called Princess.
I mean, for crying out loud, if you're gonna pull that crap, just dump her lightsaber out into the debris at Alderaan. You wanna know why they're doing this? Because of the lineage crap. This is the inheritance of the Skywalker family. Some half-buried farm in the middle of a desert. And since she's a Skywalker now, that's all she has. It's not about who she is individually. It's not about who we become or what her development is. This is the old Skywalker house, so you get to have your weapon, the only representation we have of you, to be buried. Left behind there. And she gets to look at the twin sunset like Luke did. Because she's a Skywalker now, and that's what Skywalkers do. Look at the sunset on Tatooine. It actually had significance for Luke on Ahch-To, bringing his journey full circle, although some have argued that it's actually a sunrise, which is kind of cooler, but not for Rey. You know what would have worked for her? In The Force Awakens, she saw a spaceship taking off and clearly wanted to leave, but was choosing to stay behind to wait for her family. How about instead, her closing shot is her with the rest of the Resistance, and she watches a spaceship take off, but she doesn't want to leave now because she's found her family. But why would we want symbology and closure for the main characters of this trilogy when instead we can keep mining that original trilogy nostalgia? Because clearly that's all we wanted. We just want to see stuff we've seen before. Remember this thing? Well, here it is again. You could have just watched the thing you remember, but instead you paid money to see it again, but with someone it doesn't match with. But you remember it, so it's cool! What a load. I said in my last Jedi review that Rey was a character who was trying to replay the story of Darth Vader's redemption, thinking history was repeating itself. A repeated criticism of the sequels up to this point was, well, they're just trying to rehash what happened in the original trilogy. And the truth is, the creators were well aware of that criticism, and in The Last Jedi were trying to break away from that, to put the very idea of history repeating itself to the test, and it was found to be lacking.
And yet, when people didn't like it, they just fell right back on it. And again, what was I saying at the very beginning of this? Like, I was very much on board with, you know, and willing to give them the break and give the writers a chance when people start saying that, you know, it was basically just, you know, the Death Star but bigger in the first movie. That was, you know, it was giving them a chance, you know, it was the first Star Wars movie in forever. The first one that Disney had made. So let them start get the ball rolling from a safe spot. This whole thing, it sucked. It sucked. That's all I can say.
Rey is not Luke Skywalker. Kylo Ren is not Darth Vader. He's too far gone, too damaged by everything that's happened. Rey is not the secret child of a villain, and she'll scream, "No!" and get her hand cut off and whatever. The Resistance is not the Rebellion. They're not just going to kill the Emperor and everything is A-okay. And then Rise of Skywalker happened, and they just said, no, we're going to rehash everything. Rey is related to another character. Kylo will be redeemed. We just kill the Emperor, and everything is good again. Just the same story over. What the sequel trilogy really should have, and seemed to have been shaping itself around, was a story about people who rise from nothing. Who aren't special, who have no great lineage, no important parents coming through and defeating an evil that thinks they're entitled to glory and power and strength simply because of the virtue of their heritage. The First Order co-opting the symbols of fascism, Kylo Ren thinking he's the heir apparent to Vader. And here comes this girl, born to filthy junk traders. She's got nothing but herself, and she's every bit as powerful as he is, and she didn't need no stinking Skywalker blood to do it. It rejects the idea that lineage and legacy are about who you were born to, but rather the ideals you inherit and how you make them better. This movie thinks it's doing that with this ending where she declares herself Rey Skywalker, but no, she's just switching from one powerful family to another. Your point is completely undermined by having her be Palpatine's granddaughter. One of the things I saw people say about the Emperor's presence is that it's supposed to be the culmination of the previous 8 movies. Hence why we have that shot of Cloud City, Endor, and Jakku during the end. Coulda fooled me! I thought this was the sequel trilogy! As in the 3 movies that matter, not 9! And what culmination? Say what you will about Avengers Endgame, but that was the culmination of the MCU up to that point. It's why it touched on so many parts of its history. This movie is a big scavenger hunt so that we can kill the Emperor again! If this was a culmination of the entire saga, we would have actually gone to Naboo and Tatooine and Coruscant and Hoth and Kamino and every other major place in the previous movies, brought up plot points from them that suddenly have relevance again. We go to Endor again, but it's not even recognizable as Endor. Where is the feeling like this is a culmination of 9 movies, the apotheosis of the franchise? Oh, but Rey summoned all those Jedi from the past to help her. Yeah, that's a cameo, not a culmination. Not that you can even tell with how badly that was put together. They started calling this the Skywalker saga only at this point in order to try to retcon a justification for the Emperor being the final bad guy again. Think about that. Who the hell was calling the movies the Skywalker saga when The Force Awakens came out? They only do it now to justify their dumbass decisions for this movie. The themes are so muddied up by the attempt to course correct. It feels hollow and empty, inconsistent with what we had in the previous 2 movies. It has themes, it has good moments, but they're buried and easily forgotten about because of the crushing weight of trying to make everybody happy, when that was never gonna happen. I mean, let's face it, the people who hated the last 2 movies aren't gonna be appeased by this movie, and by changing direction so radically, you alienated the people who did like them.
Again, what... I literally said that exact same thing. Like, I was okay with the first one, but the second one completely lost me. And the third literally did nothing to try to, quote-unquote, save me. This whole thing, like... This whole thing was just so mismanaged. One giant missed opportunity, just over and over and over. Every time something didn't go quite right, they tried to overcorrect going one way, then the next, and it just led to this mess, this giant waste. Honestly, like, I know it's not, you know, again, like the whole thing, it's like, oh, Disney buying Star Wars, and George Lucas isn't the villain, or whatever. But at this point, like, it's not, like, somebody should have known better. Somebody up top should have said something, but no, they didn't, because at this point, a lot of this was Disney's fault. And because at this point, they're pretty much too big to fail. Star Wars is such a massive IP that even if the movies suck, there's going to be enough people to watch, to come to them that, you know, they're still going to make money. And at this point, you know, Disney doesn't even make most of their money from the movies. The movies are just there to farm IPs for the theme parks. So even if the movies suck, they can make a ride or a hotel at one of their, like half a dozen theme parks around the world, and just have, you know, those eternal fans continuing to sink more and more and more and more money into the machine, because they're fans, and they have good memories of it when they were kids.
And hey, I'm not so full of hate that I can't admit that I enjoyed going through the movie more this time around than I did the first. It helps that the punch of Palpatine and the Rey revelation are no longer fresh, and I know they're there, so I can look at the movie for what it's trying to do. The writing setup and payoff is stronger than I remember, and the dynamics between our leads are actually much better than I thought, full of exciting spectacle and some genuinely fun moments. But none of that matters in the end when it drops the ball so hard on its messaging, with plot points that either confuse or infuriate instead of inspiring wonder or positive emotion. Star Wars is about more than shocking twists about who's related to who. It's about more than arguments concerning Dragon Ball Z power levels. It's supposed to be our step into a larger world, and yet this movie made it feel so much smaller and restricted. The thing I said back in the Force Awakens review concerning the sequels, even if they're bad, at least we'll get some good new Star Wars jokes out of this. So even though I hate Rise of Skywalker, did we? Yes! I mean, do you guys remember the Rey Star Wars memes? I used one myself back in the Transformers retrospective. Somehow, Palpatine returned! They fly now! Babu Frick, for crying out loud! So yes, even though this movie hurt the franchise badly, we know it'll recover as long as we can find joy in it. I'm sure there will be even more new Star Wars in the future, and we should welcome it. Give it a chance, because even if it's terrible, one thing we can all agree on is that there's something about this franchise that makes us happy. Whether that be inspiration from the best stuff, or how much we laugh at the awful, awful stuff. Rise of Skywalker certainly damaged the franchise, but it's not like it ended it. Nothing's ever really gone. Happy New Year, and may the Force be with us, always.
Okay, let's see. Is there anything after the credits here? This video's too long. I can't skip past the credits safely. It's sad that comic books are for geeks, but they're not there for everybody. Linkara, if you doubt that I am a man, I am a man. God, there's a lot back here. Wow, okay.
And if you think Star Wars hasn't always been trying to make money hand over foot, I would remind you that during the prequels, they ran a campaign for Pizza Hut, KFC, and Taco Bell, and said that Colonel Sanders, the Taco Bell Chihuahua, and some pizza lady could defeat the dark side. Should have been Pizza Head. I don't care if he was a Mr. Bill ripoff. I mean, he already did a Star Wars-related commercial anyway.
You're relieved that we're here.
Thank goodness you're here.
Welcome, guys. Did she do that to us?
Hello, my friends. Please take a moment.
Oh, God. Man, that was a trip. Again, like, I knew, you know, that the last movie was bad, but I had no idea it was that bad. Oh, God, honestly. Honestly, it does hurt. Because, like, again, like I said, I don't like being angry. I like being happy. I like finding joy in things. And when I see something like this, that is just something that was just so, where the ball was just fumbled so badly in this billion-dollar corporation. It's honestly just, it honestly sucks. Like, I mean, like, I imagine there's going to be more retcons in the future. And, like, I remember, like, what I said before about, like, the burnout being that, you know, people who weren't, you know, the biggest Star Wars fan just being bombarded with new Star Wars stuff constantly. A minute ago, while I was watching the credits, I remembered, I can't remember where, I think it was on a YouTube channel that was, like, dedicated to Star Wars. I honestly can't remember what it was. But one of their critiques about, like, you know, modern Star Wars is that, you know, the setting at which the new series take place is, like, really inconsistent. Like, for the longest time, like, when it was just the original trilogy, anything new that came out kind of revolved around the original trilogy or just immediately afterwards. Then, when the prequel trilogy came out, like, everything that came out was, like, stuff that happened, you know, at or around, you know, that time frame with, like, you know, like, the Clone Wars series and stuff like that. Now, it's like, with all the shows that they have made since Disney took over and are still making, and, like, they're constantly jumping around the timeline. And, like, they're not, and just for new people, especially people not too, like, into the Star Wars, at least not yet, like, it can be confusing because you're not setting, like, you're not in the universe consistently. You're not in, like, the universe at a set point at a certain time for a while, where you can kind of get used to it, and then you can kind of like, oh, slight change in this new series, then slight change in this new series. But no, it's like, oh, this series takes place then. This series takes place in the prequel era. This series takes place over here. Then it gets, again, it gets tiring for somebody who's not, like, all in on Star Wars. Oh, God. And, like, again, I know it's, like, it's the chance is small, but Linkara, if you do actually watch this video, I mean, again, thank you for putting so much effort into stuff like this. Because honestly, like, you do a better job with it, with, like, this deep analysis and, like, just theories and reviews, like, more than I ever could. And I honestly, and I honestly thank you immensely for the work that you've put in all these years. But yeah, that is it for now. So yeah, I hope you guys liked. If you did, leave a like. And if you guys want to see me do reactions to, you know, to, like, more Linkara videos, more Top the Fourth Wall videos, let me know. You know, make sure this video does well, because I very much look forward to it. I like watching his stuff, so, like, if I could do, you know, a reaction and watch his stuff at the same time, I'd very much enjoy that. But yeah, that is definitely going to be it for now. So yeah, I hope you guys liked. If you did, leave a like, subscribe if you have not, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.